Hey there, my name is James Lee. You're watching 5149. Thanks for joining me today. I've just gotten back from driving halfway across this country, and I've had the opportunity to see different sides of America and had a lot of time to think and reflect about the state of American politics. Things like why conservative Christians might favor Trump, even though they technically shouldn't. Things like corruption in our political institutions, along with some of the toxic and misleading and exploitative framing that we see in our American political discourse today, and how that combined has led to political and societal instability. So today is going to be a little bit of a brain dump, but hopefully it all kind of makes sense and tie together at the end. So I'm going to try to explain my thoughts through a concept that Casey Neistat talked about in one of his videos from maybe a year ago that really resonated with me. And if you don't know Casey, he's like one of the most famous YouTubers out there. Basically revolutionized vlogging. He's not a huge political guy, and the video I'm citing here isn't a political video, but I do think his perspective here is very interesting. So he made a video titled Being Rich versus Being Poor, a video essay, where he talks about the concept of money problems versus life problems. I'm going to play a little bit of the video, and then we'll talk about why this is important in the context of discussing the current fabric of American politics.
Rich or poor, we all face these problems that I'll call life problems. Life problems are things like finding happiness and finding love and a sense of fulfillment in your life and a sense of purpose maybe in your career, etc. These are life problems. These are problems we all, rich or poor, encounter. Money won't solve these problems. But when you're broke, on top of, and I mean that literally and figuratively, on top of these problems, you've got money problems. And money problems are things like, how am I gonna pay rent? How am I gonna pay for food? I'm sick and can't afford to go to the doctor. I can't get a job because I can't drive to work. I don't have any nice clothes to wear to that job interview, things like that. And I think the hardest part of money problems is that when you have money problems, they can drown out these other issues. Like, if you're feeling down in life, it's hard to work on your happiness when you literally might not know where you're gonna sleep. It's hard to dwell too much on a relationship when you literally don't know where your next meal might come from. And you're not exactly worried about fulfillment at your job when you have no way to get there and you got no clothes to wear. And you get the idea. I go even further with this.
So I don't know if he realizes this or not, but he's essentially here describing Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The idea that humans have innate needs, and that needs lower down in the hierarchy must be satisfied before individuals can attend to needs higher up. You can see on this pyramid here that the theory starts with the basic needs, things like safety and security, food, water, warmth, rest, and then moves up to psychological needs like the prestige and feeling of accomplishment, or intimate relationships, friends, and then the top is self-fulfillment, just achieving one's full potential, including creative activities. So it's essentially moving from survival all the way up to feeling fulfilled. And the idea here is that without satisfying the basic needs, what Casey is calling money problems, because all these basic needs can essentially be solved by money, we can't move on to higher level needs, what he's calling life problems. And it just so happens that government plays a huge role in making sure as many citizens as possible have a chance to meet their basic needs, things like security and safety, and then making sure that we have an infrastructure in place to support jobs so people can exchange the pay they earn to secure things like food, water, housing, those kind of things. To use an analogy here, let's talk about the game of basketball. So scoring points is like making money. It's a really important metric for allowing a basketball player to have a job and stay employed. But winning is what gives meaning to a basketball player's career. That's the life part. Not only are they great point scorers, but they also have intangibles like leadership that help a team win championships, their legacy, so to speak. But in order for the game to work, there needs to exist a set of rules and regulations. You can't just go on the court and start punching people or tackling opponents or have the referee favor one player or one team. Guardrails are needed to create a fair and competitive environment. Similarly, a healthy government should do the same for its citizens. And societies that have a large proportion of citizens struggling to meet these basic needs are inherently unstable. Human beings are survivalists who crave stability. And if some of us don't know where our next meal will come from, or if we can pay rent the next month, We're going to go through extraordinary lengths to survive and restore that stability, sometimes neglecting every other need or desire that we might have. Like I said, I was just driving across the country, and I think it was in North Dakota or South Dakota. My friend and I, we were talking about things like politics and philosophy, and all of a sudden it started raining and hailing extremely hard. We could hardly see it in front of us, and the conversation just stopped. Boom. No more conversation. And all we were thinking about at that point was making sure that we survived, we were safe. So that's a little bit like the basic needs versus the higher level needs, or what Casey's calling money problems versus life problems. And this is important because over history, we see many examples of how authoritarian regimes have exploited our desire to meet our basic needs as a means to rise to power. The most famous example is probably the rise of Hitler and the Nazi Party in Germany during the Great Depression of the 1930s. To cite a statistic here, by the time Hitler became Chancellor of Germany, 1 in 3 Germans were unemployed. But we also have more recent examples like Bolsonaro's win in Brazil last year, which was largely driven by angry voters who yearn for a solution to the country's chronic epidemic of crime and corruption. And of course, Trump's win in 2016. A paper from the Institute of New Economic Thinking found that Donald Trump exploited long-term economic distress to fuel his election victory, and that economic distress still motivates large swaths of the American electorate. This is really important because right now we are in the midst of a pandemic, and according to a recent Harris poll, more than half of Americans fear that they may lose their jobs due to the coronavirus outbreak. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, the government needs to enact policies that create and maintain a consistent and cohesive set of rules that give people agency to tackle their money problems so then they can move on to their life problems. The problem is that's not what our government is doing anymore. If you look at both parties, they don't have any true desire to make reasonable policies. At this point, they're seeking power for the sake of power. The conversation isn't about what policies will help people secure their basic needs and tackle these money problems that we're talking about. And that's because our government has been bought and paid for by corporations and the interests of the few and wealthy elites, and it has made it impossible for the average American to play the game and play the game fairly. Winning in power is now the ultimate goal for both parties. Winning for the sake of winning. And I think that's the reason why both parties have descended into scapegoating and fear-mongering to win votes. We just watched both the DNC and the RNC over the last couple weeks. And this might be an oversimplification of what happened during the conventions, but essentially the Democrats scapegoat Trump for everything that's wrong with this country, and then the Republicans on the other side fearmonger by claiming that the Democrats will destroy your way of life and that America will be in some sort of socialist anarchist chaos if Biden gets elected. There's very little talk about specific policies on both the Democratic side and the Republican side, policies that might help people tackle their money problems that threaten their everyday survival, so that we as a society can move on to the more meaningful pursuit of tackling life problems. And that's what my channel 5149 is all about, changing the political discourse to focus on ideas and policies. I don't care about teams, I don't care about saying the right things, I don't care about clout. The whole reason why I've started this YouTube channel is because I care about people and creating a future where the majority of the people in this world have the fair opportunity to tackle their money problems, so things like housing, things like healthcare, so then we have enough bandwidth to worry about life problems like love and self-fulfillment. I'll pause here for today, but if you feel similarly, please give this video a like, share with a friend or a family member, and subscribe to my channel so we can help restore our democracy one person and one community at a time.